Wild Jobs Namibia is proudly brought to you by Windhoek Lager.
Namibia, land of the brave. Brave men and women who dedicate their lives to protecting a country of harsh terrain, ancient cultures, and vulnerable wildlife. Namibian conservationists Dr. Rudy and Marlies van Vuren are on a mission to travel the length and breadth of Namibia to meet these intrepid individuals and to witness the incredible work they undertake on a daily basis. These are the unsung heroes of Namibian conservation, and these are their wild jobs.
Namibia has been rated as one of the top 5 tourism destinations in the world by the Lonely Planet. We get over 1 million tourists visiting the country per year. People firstly come and visit Namibia because of the landscapes, the wildlife secondly, and thirdly, the different cultures in Namibia.
Tourism does not only support conservation financially, but also through the awareness that the conservation projects create here in Namibia. In this episode, we're going all over the country to see how tourism can support conservation.
Southern Namibia boasts some of the world's greatest dune landscapes. At the Canaan Desert Retreat, 5 orphan cheetahs live in an 11-hectare camp surrounding one such magnificent dune.
Here you've got 5 cheetahs here in a very big enclosure, and this enclosure includes this dune. What's the idea with the cheetahs and the dune in this enclosure?
We keep them here at Canaan, and that gives us the opportunity for filmmakers and photographers to come and shoot in the natural environment, photo shoots of these wild animals.
I think, if you look at the film crew that you have, as I understand it, they're shooting for an educational program on natural behavior on cheetahs. That's also probably a very useful thing to create awareness and education.
Very much so. It's one of the main priorities which we want to do. We want to educate the public about the cheetahs, the environment, and how they behave. And by doing this, we get the exposure and to actually generate extra funds to support our endeavors here on the farm Canaan.
Now, Theo, I've got a pet hate. Very often people start a tourism venture and then disguise it as conservation. And that's a case where I feel the tail is wagging the dog, which shouldn't be the case. But seeing and understanding what you're saying now, it seems to me that the conservation should come first and then the tourism to support that. Is that correct?
Most definitely. What we have here, we have the conservation first and foremost.
Marlies van Vuren has worked with many film crews over the years and is one of Namibia's top cheetah wranglers. Filming with wildlife can often raise certain ethical questions, something Marlies is keenly aware of.
It's always difficult for me to bring out the right message, because the minute there's a documentary shot and you see me with the animals, then people say, "Oh, it's so sweet, I want one." And for me, it's always a catch-22. We want to bring out the conservation message and that animals are actually beautiful, and the only way I can do it is to expose people on television and in photography with these animals. But you don't want to put them in captivity. You don't want to shoot their mums and raise them up in captivity, because they actually belong in the wild. So leave them there. And if there's people that want animals or need animals in photography or in documentaries, there's associations that you can go to, the right places, and require animals rather there. Don't do it the wrong way. Don't start selling and buying.
These organizations exist right here in Namibia. And Kanan Desert Retreat is one of them. These cheetahs were tragically orphaned at a young age and brought here to be cared for. They would not survive in the wild. At least through tourism and raising awareness for their species, they can support their brothers and sisters in the wild.
Wild Jobs Namibia is proudly brought to you by Windhoek Lager. Wild Jobs Namibia is proudly brought to you by Windhoek Lager.
We are here in the northwest of Namibia, in the heart of Damara land, one of the most beautiful locations in the world, on the banks of the O&L River. Here's a lodge that was built, and that's called the Wilderness O&L Camp.
And you can just see these guys were totally switched on when they built this beautiful camp. You can see the philosophy of minimal impact on the environment and of conservation. And the best thing is, if you have that philosophy, you will be rewarded.
What do you think of our view?
Beautiful,
Yes.
really lovely.
Welcome to Windhoek. Rudy
Sure.
Mallies, absolute pleasure to have you here in our what we would call faraway place we know as home.
Far, far away.
Very, very good. Yeah.
You got an international award for this camp. Can you tell us more about it?
So with the new camp that opened in August, we had obviously a lot of media and so on pass through. One of the groups that came in was the Tatler magazine, and we got an award for Tatler Traveler 2015, and the award was named Most Out of This World. And it was purely because of our location, and then also as a new destination. So we were a selection of about maybe 10 or 15 camps in Africa in a whole, and we were just selected because of our pure remoteness, and obviously if it's worth bragging about the pure beauty of the area itself.
You can brag, it's beautiful.
Clement, I must say it's out of this world. I'm astonished by what I see. You know, you can see everything has just been done in the finest detail. But what is very, very obvious to me is that the impact on nature seems very little. What was your philosophy when you designed this camp?
Okay, principally wilderness safaris have an environmental standard when we open up a camp in terms of where we've located and how much impact we have on the area. A lot of the design and architectural design that you see here is based on that environmental aspect, as well as making it look pretty and storing temperature as well.
Clement, that little bar that you built there, is it only to view, or is there actually something in it?
Well, you know, it depends on the time of day, right? But
The caravan is over.
once the caravan lands and the sun starts to fade, you can imagine it becomes our waterhole as per tradition, so to speak.
Well done.
As you can imagine, some more leisure area before you head out on activity. This is usually the ideal spot to relax, as the guides try and encourage you to start heading out and explore
into
little.
the sun. Eh?
As we encourage, you have no idea.
Listen, this camp is so far and so remote and in the middle of nowhere. Why would guests come here if there's no cell phone, no internet? And that's actually what the majority of people nowadays need.
It is definitely a necessity. I think in many ways it's also something that can be broken away from. Parts of the highlights in the area here is the desert elephants that roam in and around the area. The camp's location allows us to observe the animals in their natural habitat. We work closely with the Desert Elephant Conservation, and they pass through every 6 months, and we provide accommodation for them here. We'll also have them participate in the research center as well, and all the information that we observe with the elephants is usually processed and sent to them as well. So in terms of our contribution to the area, it is important that we always take in perspective that the community benefits from the area, and in return guests also benefit from us visiting the area.
That's a really good philosophy, right?
Yeah, I can cook a killer omelette. Do you have place for a cook?
Well, you know, as long
And
as
I'm
the
a new employee.
as long as you don't kill anyone in the omelette. I don't mind cooking the omelette. And you
But at
consider,
least then you have a doctor on site, so
you
don't worry.
consider yourself employed, sir.
Before Rudy can consider his new job as Wilderness Huanit Camp's killer omelette chef, the couple must make tracks and continue their journey of some of Namibia's top ecotourism destinations. Next stop is the Fish River Canyon.
We are now 150 kilometers southwest from Keetmanshoop in the Karras region, and behind us we have the Fish River Canyon.
30 years ago, this was a sheep farm with fences and kraals. And it's difficult to believe we're now in one of the top conservation destinations in Namibia, the Godwana Canyon Park. Manny, we've been driving through this 130,000 hectare park that you've created here, and I imagine that this is how Africa looked hundreds of years ago. But it's difficult to believe that this was livestock farms 30, 40 years ago.
Well, in the 1940s, this area was given out as farmland, and it should have never been done. The rainfall is just too small. There's a 90 millimeters of rainfall, average annual rainfall here. It's not enough for farming. And it took about 30 years, and then the farmers started to getting problems, overgrazing and putting fences up. The game couldn't move anymore. It was not suitable for farming. We worked it out in the last 100 years. There were 3 good periods, the 7 good years, and that's not enough. You know, 70% of the time the farmers couldn't farm here. And then there was a big drought in the 80s and the 90s, and that caused the farmers to move out. And that is when we moved in. And the first thing we did is we took the fences out just to create an open system again. What we did actually is replacing the land use from farming to tourism.
Wild Jobs Namibia is proudly brought to you by Windhoek Lager. Wild Jobs Namibia is proudly brought to you by Windhoek Lager.
The Namib Desert in southern Namibia is home to a little-known wildlife gem, the wild horses of the Namib Desert.
We are 100 kilometers east from Luderitz in the Namib No-Kloof Park. With a big herd of wild horses in the desert. Where do they come from?
We came to ask Dr. Telani Greiling, Namibia's wild horse guru, where these horses come from.
We're here in the desert and it's dry and there's horses behind you. How did they end up here?
It pretty much happened in the beginning of the century. Originally, we thought it might have been a ship that stranded and left some horses on the coast. Then we looked around this area and we found that there were actually two incidents that contributed to the formation of the population. The First World War, the German troops were in Lüderitz. The South African troops landed on the coast at Lüderitz and moved in. The German troops retreated. The South African troops followed them in. The Germans had a plane which they used to bomb the South African troops, and specifically the horses that were tied to picket lines. In that way they scattered the horses, and it's very likely that some of the horses were left behind by the South African troops. Then there was also another contribution, which was Emil Kreplin, who was the mayor of Lüderitz, and in the post-war depression he lost all his assets. We're speculating and assuming that he couldn't pay anybody to look after his horses here on Kubub, so most likely the horses were just left to own means. So for 100 years pretty much they were left alone. It became park, and they're still protected in the park.
But in this area, I mean, we know that water is the biggest threat for them, and drought, but is there any other predators in this area that will bring their numbers down?
There's leopard and cheetah and the spotted hyena. They used to not be a big influence on the population. The leopard would take a foal every now and then, and the cheetah would take a foal every now and then, but not significantly so. The spotted hyena in the past took a couple of foals here and there, but not significantly. Although in the last year there seemed to be an increase in the number of hyenas, and the hyenas are now having a larger influence on the population, and actually almost to the point where they're controlling the population numbers.
Sure. Okay.
The wild horses attract tourists who can view them from the safety and comfort of this viewing station. Kleinhaus Vista Lodge is also close by, offering affordable accommodation from camping to luxury suites for weary travellers. As Talani continues observing the horses, an incredible thing happens. One of the horses gives birth.
This is just amazing to see. I mean, I expected horses, and then I got a bunch of wild horses. And a birth is just a miracle. It's a miracle happening right in front of our eyes. It's just amazing.
It is fantastic. We are incredibly lucky. I've only seen it 3 times in 20 years, so it's really fantastic to see this. So lucky.
So one more baby.
One more baby.
And we hold thumbs, no hyena.
Yes. No, this one must grow up.
As this young foal takes his first steps in life, there is hope for these wild children of the desert and their ongoing survival in this harshest of terrains. Coming up next week on Wild Jobs Namibia, we meet Florian Weiser, a Nankosei wildlife researcher tasked with studying human-wildlife conflict and finding solutions to mitigate it.
Wild Jobs Namibia is proudly brought to you by Windhoek Lager.